Conversation with Amy Helm. I'm your host, Eric Miller. This is part of the Pods and Sods Network, and I want to thank you, first off, as always, for clicking the download button or the subscribe button or whatever combination of buttons you click to find this episode. It's always very much appreciated. It was a real treat to chat with Amy. She has, obviously, music in her DNA. Her father is the legendary Levon Helm of the band, and, what can you say about him and his career? But also her mother, Libby Titus, a successful singer in her own right, and I guess she had Dr. John in her life for a while when she was a kid, and Donald Fagen is now her stepfather. So, beyond that, we talk about that a little bit. But when I'm talking to someone who's a child of somebody like someone that has a huge shadow over them like that, I try to avoid it a little bit because it's kind of unfair sometimes. But obviously she continues in her father's legacy because she was part of his band for so many years and a key component to his sound and records in his later years. But also she was in Ollabelle, a great sort of Americana group based in New York for a decade or more. But now she's a solo artist. She's out on her own, and she's pretty fucking amazing. I just saw her recently live, and it's Amy Helm and the Handsome Strangers. She has, an incredible band that, I guess different guys kind of come in and out of the band, but there's some key guys. But the night I saw her, she had Winston Roy sitting in, who was a great bass player out of New York that I've known from Danelia Cotton's band. He's in Soul Asylum for a good run. I think even still currently. But she's super talented and seriously fantastic in her own right. So anyway, having said all that, without any further ado, here is my conversation with Amy Helm. Gives me great pleasure to welcome Miss Amy Helm. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me about your work and your music and your career and life. And it's it's a long and interesting one. And I do want to ask a bit about your upbringing and things like that. I think people focus on that obviously a lot with you for completely understandable reasons. But I'm more interested in like your perspective on like your experiences and your journeys and things like that. So the first question is kind of back to the beginning. Like, do you remember, obviously you kind of have music in the DNA, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember like when you first took sort of a practical interest in singing or making music? Was there a moment?
Practical meaning like stepping into it as a job, you mean, or?
No, I mean as as like maybe an earliest memory of performing or picking up an instrument or.
Yeah. Well, I always I just always loved to sing and play. Honestly, as far back as I can remember, when I was little, I played a lot of piano and loved to write songs, and I wanted to be Carole King, and I remember I think I probably I imagine that a lot of people share this memory with me, that one of my strongest memories as a kid of kind of falling in love with music and falling in love with the space it provided was riding in the car. Right. Sitting in the back seat and looking out the window and just completely grooving to whatever your parents were playing. I remember listening. My mom would play Jolene and lots of Dolly Parton and a great soul singer named Brenda Russell. Mm-hmm. And I remember those songs on repeat. And I just always it's just always what I loved and what seemed to come natural. And as time went on and I got older in school and stuff, I was really blessed to have some incredible music teachers. Of course, at home I was being exposed to great songs and and being taught kind of the basics that my dad wanted me to learn, the hymns that I needed to know, and, stuff his parents had taught him, and kind of the standards in his songbook of his time and his background. I'll Fly Away is one song I remember doing, and Tennessee Waltz and all those kind of songs. But I also remember in high school having a teacher, Dr. Aaron Bell, who was a phenomenal jazz bass player who played with Duke Ellington, and I was lucky enough to have him as a jazz teacher at the high school that I went to, and his mentoring me really changed the course of what I wanted to do, and I think really was the beginning of me, realizing that this is kind of the only thing I was good at doing. I wasn't a mathematician, that I was clear with also.
Right.
And so as I progressively got C's and D's in algebra and geometry, singing seemed to be something I could do and do it pretty good. So
right.
Yeah.
That's great. And you sort of sang with your father I think, looking at your notes, I think there was something when you were 6 and you were on a Sesame Street record when you were 10. Like you were kind of always, sort of in the choir.
Yes, I was. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Sesame Street record was a little bit of an anomaly, but I think looking back, I was always in situations, whether with my parents or at school or with friends where I was part of a choir. And again, in fact, a memory just jumped to mind in high school that we used to have there were 6 or 7 of us that could hold a tune and that got pretty good at harmony, and we used to basically kind of cut class and go sit outside and smoke cigarettes and practice singing harmonies from everything from Neil Young to REM, and I always found my way to a choir, and certainly my parents provided opportunities for me to do that as well.
Nice. How about, the music you talk about? Like you and I are roughly the same age. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but, you're the MTV generation, right? So you're growing up in the 80s. Like people, I mean, no offense to the band, but, people 15 in 1985 aren't really listening to the band. They're listening to Michael Jackson and Madonna. Did you go through all that stuff as well?
Well, I did, but what's funny? Now I have this conversation all the time, of course, because now with kids of my own and wondering if the world as we know it has changed too far, too fast, right? I don't know if it's true or if every generation has this perception, but I will say, I was just talking about this with my friends. When I was in high school, we all knew Madonna, and we all knew. I mean, Run DMC was huge.
Right.
Beastie Boys, all that stuff, and before that, of course, Grandmaster Flash and all the early hip hop, and we knew all that stuff coming out. But honestly, there wasn't a kid in my high school who didn't know every lyric to Helplessly Hoping, or any Rolling Stones hit, or any other thing, CSNY, Rolling Stones, the Eagles. I mean, there was like 70s rock was, I don't know, everybody knew it. Right. And it seems these days that it doesn't seem as, maybe the radio stations were programmed a little bit differently then, so that if you were listening to a pop station, maybe they played Sympathy for the Devil side by side with a Madonna tune. I'm not sure. I haven't concluded my analysis here of that of the musical demise. I don't know, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, it also has to do probably with how you are exposed to it. I grew up with cool parents that played the cool music, right? But when I hit my teens, I was like, well, screw you, Dad. I'm gonna go listen to this, right? Whereas I think kids nowadays kind of just find their own way before. Like there's so many other avenues to be exposed to it. So it's not just their parents' music that they hear in the car. Because I have that same memory the way you describe it, which is, nostalgically wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's like everything's right with the world. when you're hearing something you love and your parent, you're driving and you're in the back seat, things are safe and things are good. Although I have to say, I also remember being maybe 18 or 19, and both my dad and my stepfather, who's a musician as well, reintroducing me and really making me kind of study the whole, not making me, but, playing the whole double CD box set thing of Ray Charles and being like, holy shit, what is this?
Right.
After listening to Word Up by Cameo and you start listening to Drown in My Own Tears, it's earth-shatteringly different.
Right.
Not taking anything away from Cameo, because I love that song.
Of course.
And I loved Cameo, but yeah.
Of course. Now, I think in your early 20s, you're in New York and you do start performing out. Was that just kind of a singer-songwriter? Were you solo at that point?
No, I wasn't solo till a couple years ago.
Okay.
I was singing in a high school band. When I was 14, I started doing little gigs as kind of a cameo. I'd do my couple tunes that I would sit in and do.
Okay.
And then I was singing in bands. Yes, by the time I was in college during summer vacation, I'd come home from college and sing and did a bunch of stuff through that. And then really when I started singing with Ollabelle, that was a more full-on, I quit working at the flower shop that I worked at for my day job, and I quit waitressing, and I jumped in full speed ahead.
You said you're leaving me behind. There's just one thing I want to put on your mind. You know the love that you've been getting, I'm gonna give it to someone new. And you're gonna miss me, baby, when you're gone. You're gonna miss me, oh baby, when you're gone. Oh honey, what you gonna do without the one who really cares for you? Why would you put your love in her hand when you know she can't love like I can? You're gonna miss me, baby, when you're gone. You're gonna miss me, honey, when you're gone. You're gonna miss me. You're gonna miss me, yeah. Say you don't love me no more. But you better think about it before you go. You're gonna think about me sometime. Fall on your knees and cry. You're gonna miss me, baby, when you're gone. You're gonna miss me, honey, when you're gone. You're gonna miss me. You're gonna miss me. You're gonna miss me. You're gonna miss me when you're gone.
And it was always, so there was never solo gigging up until this most recent iteration of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, first time. In fact, I did my first solo gig, I'd say about, let's see, my little one was just a few weeks old, so I don't know, 4.5 years ago, I did a solo gig opening up for Chadwick Stokes.
Okay.
At a small club in Albany, New York, for about 20 people, and I sat down the whole time, and I thought I might die in the middle of it, but I got through it.
See,
I don't think I've ever been so nervous as I was then.
That's so interesting because you have, literally a lifetime of being on stage and singing, but it's the difference is that it's not an ensemble, it's not collaborative, it's just all eyes on you. That's the difference?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, and it was absolutely, totally terrifying. It was as if I had never done it, and I was just having this. Occasionally, I'll meet younger singers who are, maybe just beginning or maybe deciding if they want to kind of leave their living rooms and head out and try to perform songs they've written or songs they're learning. And I so enjoy connecting with younger singers and hearing where they are and kind of encouraging them to really try it, because it's scary at any age, and it's really scary with any kind of resume that you've acquired. You'd have thought I'd never been on stage before that night that I got up in Albany in front of 15, 20 people.
Interesting. And it's because you have, obviously your father, you mentioned Donald Fagen, right? You have mentors
Mm-hmm.
like crazy coming up, Dr. John, Larry Campbell, all these folks. And I'm assuming through all that, they're mentoring you, they're coaching you. So doesn't that sort of confirm sort of your legitimacy as a performer? Like, it's interesting that you would still have some self-doubt through all that.
Well, I don't know if so much. The thing that's always, I guess, kind of incredible and the beauty and the mystery of an incredible teacher is that I don't know if their guidance makes you reconnect to the part of you that's willing to try. I think right. Maybe that's. But that part of knowing yourself in your art and as an artist, I think that you have to get there on your own. I mean, it's so reflective almost, or imitates kind of a journey of any kind of faith or even spiritual faith. I think a bunch of people can tell you that something greater is out there, but till you feel it yourself, right. And I think I think it's the same for anything in life, and certainly in the process of art. No matter how heavy and connected your teachers may be, and when I say heavy and connected, I mean in their own art. I don't mean whether they're celebrities or not. But
of course. Right.
But yeah, I know. But I will say that the thing that got me to go ahead and get through that first handful of gigs, and I would even say the first 6 months, a year of doing gigs and finding myself and having chosen to do it at an age where I it wasn't as expected, and there was just a little bit of people that may have been familiar with me from the Ramble, so I had a small audience, but nonetheless it was an audience who was there with some kind of expectation. Right. The thing that really allowed me to take a deep breath and kind of jump and trust it and trust myself was the voices of all those great teachers, Dr. Aaron Bell and my piano teachers from when I was little, and my mom and my dad and Dr. John and my stepdad Donald and really my peers too. My peers taught me so much, my friends in Ollabelle, everybody that I've gotten to play with. It's all those voices that kind of collide and help you find your way.
Little birds are singing all around me on every every bush and vine. My pleasures would be double if I could call you mine. As I sat here the whole night through till now, it's a breaking day. I'm waiting for an answer, kind of lady, what do you say? If I could tell to you my mind, I'd choose a single life. For I never thought that it suited for me to be your wife. So he wrote to her an answer, and he sent it by first speed. You know I once did love you dearly. I once loved you indeed. Well, it had not been but a very short time till this maiden's mind did change. She wrote him in a letter, kind sir, I am ashamed. If ever I have slighted you or ever done you wrong, I am so far away from you that I can hear you moan. Little birds are singing all around me, on every bush and vine. My pleasures would be double if I could call you mine. My pleasures would be double if I could call you
Was there any pressure, like because of your last name? Was there any pressure of, boy, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it proper? Was that part of it, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's, yes, to some degree. I mean, there was never, I never pressured myself to do something on the level that my dad had done it, because I got to watch him, master his instrument and be on a level of musicianship and experience that all of us were kind of in awe of and always will be. But yeah, I mean, even just for people that may have come to Ollabelle gigs, that might have come to one of my gigs to check it out, I just wanted to do right by everybody and kind of put my best foot forward.
Right.
And it took some time to figure out what that was.
Right. I do want to ask about Ollabelle because you were with them for about 10 years, and I don't think that's officially dissolved. I think that door's...
No, we just did well, not just, I guess time seems to be racing. About a year ago, we did a really fun reunion gig at City Winery. We were actually going to try to do another one there this fall, but everybody's schedule is so nuts.
Right.
That band is definitely not resolved. We're just kind of on a long, right. Everybody's busy with babies and careers and stuff, but we've talked about recording another record too at some point.
Excellent.
Which would be really lovely, yeah.
And the question is going to be kind of what did you learn from that? Because that's, again, that's a collaborative environment, but it was long-standing, a lot of creative folks. Like, what did Ollabelle do for you instead of furthering your, artistic spirit or journey?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I learned so much from singing in that band, learning to be in a band, learning to be in a collective, musically challenging. I can't really, it feels so big, I can't think of what to say. I mean, each person in that band individually inspired me and made me stronger in such a different way, and I could probably talk, for an hour just about give an hour to each individual. I mean, just singing with Fiona and matching her timbre and learning to phrase against Tony's drumming and all that. I mean, I could just go on and on about each and every one of them. It was a fantastic band and a great musical experience, and I admire everybody in that band hugely.
Awesome. And that's obviously where you connected with Byron, right? Byron Isaacs.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Who did a lot of work on Didn't It Rain.
Yeah.
I want to ask about your dad's last, the two records, the Dirt Farmer, right, and Electric Dirt. Mm-hmm. 2007 Dirt Farmer, like you're credited pretty much with everything, I think, except for like topography on that record. I
did do a lot with that record. That was awesome. That was a really cool thing to be able to co-produce that with Larry and see that to come to fruition.
Was he excited at that time? Like that had to be, because this is maybe the first time, that you and he are working together on an album. This is kind of his return. This is, you've been through Ollabelle, so you're way more mature. That had to be a really fruitful time in terms of like connectedness and things like that. It
really was. It was a really, really special time, and we had talked about doing that album for years. Bringing out, remembering, and then recording and kind of documenting these songs from different parts of his childhood. And so we had wanted to do that for so long, and every time we would play together or he would teach me a song, something that his parents had taught him, he'd make sure to teach me those songs, and when we'd play them, we'd say, we have to record this, and it all came together so naturally. And as we kind of prepared to do the record and started cutting songs, it was a very cool thing to watch all these other songs come up into his mind out of memory and out of the unconscious back up into present time. And he would call me and say, "Oh, I remembered this verse from Blind Child that I had forgotten." It was pretty cool. It was special to watch it, and it was really felt like we were bringing our family history and lineage into a place where we were documenting it and honoring it.
Nice. So is there a point there where you sort of become, obviously these lines are, these identities are kind of happening in parallel, but is there a point there where you become as much of a contemporary as like just his daughter?
Uh,
Is that a weird question?
I sometimes felt no. I'm thinking of if that's true. If that, I feel like I had moments. I definitely, when we sang together, we had such a thing which I think you just hear when family members sing together.
Right.
Brothers, sisters, parents, and kids. There's just a familial blend that you get, and there's a knowing almost. I don't know how to describe it. There's a sense of knowing where the other person's going to go and when they're going to lean into the note and when the harmony's going to swell and all of that. So in those times, I think that I felt like his peer, but there were so many times with him that were funny that I've talked with Byron and a lot of people about this, friends who were part of the Ramble band and different iterations of it with him, that there were so many times where he would just without even trying to, without knowing that he would just slay anything that anybody had just done. I remember doing this gig with him and Jimmy Vivino and Byron and all these guys down in Arkansas, and he wasn't quite singing yet. His voice was still really off and on from the radiation treatments, and we were doing Take Me to the River.
Right.
Jimmy Vivino started playing it, and I thought, well, I know this song. And I jumped up and took the first verse, and I was feeling pretty good. And then my dad got moved, and he got psyched about it, and even though he didn't have full voice, he jumped in, started ripping into the second verse, and it was so badass. I couldn't even believe it. It was just funny to just be completely have your ass just kicked on stage, but in the most loving and unconscious way. He didn't even know he was doing it. So I always felt, I think everybody did always feel a little bit, reverent of him in some way. He was just such a strong, everything he did just exuded music, everything. Even the way he said hi, he kind of,
Right.
He was just an unusual player,
Nice. Are there, from those two records, are there extra tracks that have been recorded? Is there any kind of rarity stuff that might be floating around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. There's a lot of really beautiful stuff, and I'm excited to create some kind of cool album from that at some point down the road.
Excellent. That's cool. Obviously, the Din and Rain record, it goes back a few years. You started working on it while your father was, still with us.
Mm-hmm.
And history has it that you sort of really took your time with it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about maybe when you started that, or what the impetus was?
Sure. Well, I started it with to be totally honest. I didn't really start it with a real intention. I just wanted to try to begin to record some songs and put my foot in the water, put my toe in the water, really. And I guess I imagined that someday down the road I would put out a record of my own, but when I began it, I saw it as a very long-term thing. I thought of it as something, because of course no one expects the changes that life brings on. So I thought, well, I could work at this slowly, and then I could make a little CD and bring it out when we could take the Rambles out on the road. I didn't go much past that.
Right.
And then as I began the process of recording the record, I had a couple years of doing it very slowly when I was off the road with the Ramble band or Ollabelle. I would go up and we'd cut some tracks, and then when my dad got sick and passed away, I started to do that gig, is one of them in Albany that I described, and started to do a couple little gigs here and there, and sort of ended up growing quite a bit as a singer, and the songs grew quite a bit, and a band got built, and then I had to re-record at least half of the album because it wasn't reflective of where I had kind of landed as a singer and where the songs had landed arrangement-wise. So it took a very long time to get there, but we finally completed it and put it out, which was an incredible. It felt like I climbed Mount Everest. I couldn't believe it.
Said my baby is coming home tomorrow. Ain't that good news? Yeah. Hey there, ain't that news? Said my baby's coming home tomorrow. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? My baby's coming home tomorrow. Ain't that news? Yeah, ain't that news? I got a letter just the other day telling me he was on his way, and he wants me to meet him at the station. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? In the letter he told me he loved me. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? In the letter he told me he loved me. Ain't that news? Yeah, ain't that news? She said he's sorry that he left. He found out he don't want nobody else. Said he wants me all to himself. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? Good news. Ain't that good news? Yeah, yeah. Ain't that news? Said my baby's coming home tomorrow. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? A party at the station. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? Gonna have him a party at the station. Ain't that news? Yeah, ain't that news? Well, I can't wait to get him home where we can be alone. Disconnect a telephone. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? Good news, ain't that good news? Yeah, yeah, ain't that news? And my baby's coming home tomorrow. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news? Good news, ain't that good news? Yeah, yeah, ain't that news? And my baby's coming home tomorrow. Ain't that good news? Yeah, ain't that news?
It's interesting, and this is maybe a bit of an impossible question, but like from a practical sense, like you were preparing to do that, but you almost had to do that because of his passing. Like I don't want to say it so bluntly, but that was kind of your job, right? And then you had to find a new job. That's a bit blunt, but
yeah, no, it felt like that. I mean, I guess I always hesitate to answer that because I don't want to make it sound like something got handed to me, because I have so many close friends and family who are working musicians, and all of them, we're all out there working our asses off, and sometimes hardly able to pay the bills, and sometimes having an incredible payday, and the whole working life of a working musician is a thing. So I just think the confusion, I kind of had this incredible gig with doing the Rambles, and I never took it for granted. I always knew what a great experience that was, and a great payday, and it was it was a really special time and a really special gig. And then I felt, I was kind of thrown, life pulls the rug out from underneath you. And and that's exactly what you said is what I experienced. I did feel like it just seemed like that was one thing I could do. And so I just kind of blindly stumbled forward into it,
Right. And that's also probably not to say that you would not have ultimately gone that direction, but that maybe gave you a bit of a nudge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it felt for sure.
Yeah, I want to ask about a few songs on that record. Obviously, your dad, plays on a couple of them, and that's got to be, if this is your solo debut and you're coming out, and it's almost a debut of your identity, right? In many ways, how important is it that continuity is there, that he's part of that for you?
Oh, I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's so amazing to have him on there and have his voice on there. He counts off one of the tunes, and the whole thing is just it just is perfect. It wouldn't have felt. It just feels so right because it connects. He, more than anybody in my life, he always wanted me to make my own record, and I think like any good father, good parents see in you what you can't yet see in yourself, and so he really wanted me to pursue that and make a record and challenge myself to do things I thought I couldn't do. So that was a really awesome thing to have him on there.
That's cool. And it's also, the other thing for continuity's sake that is interesting, like a few of the covers that you've selected, right? So, Good News is a song you've been doing with the Rambles for years, right? So that seems like that's almost a no-brainer to put on the record, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we flipped it and did a different arrangement of how we had been doing it at the Rambles. And that was, Good News was great. And then Martha Scanlon's song is on there, and she's one of my dearest friends, and I'm one of her biggest fans. I love her writing, and I love her music. And then we have a Mary Gauthier, Beth Nielsen Chapman song on there.
Yeah, and also Didn't It Rain?
And Didn't It Rain? Yes, of course.
Traditional.
Which is Mahalia Jackson, not Tom Jones, if you look it up.
Was it
people think...
Isn't there an original, like, Sister... I'm drawing a blank on her name. Sister Rosetta?
Rosetta Tharpe?
Yeah. Have you heard that version?
Yeah, I have. I love that version. I know Mahalia is the best, and Mahalia's phrasing is definitely what inspired me to sing it the way I did. I mean, in fact, I'm probably copying at my best copy of Mahalia Jackson's phrasing in the arrangement of it. But I don't know if Mahalia Jackson's version, I think that it predates Sister Rosetta Tharpe's. I'm pretty sure she did it first.
Okay.
But we should check that.
Yeah, I think I think hers might be in the 50s, and I think Rosetta's might be in the 40s, because I think she's a bit earlier timeline-wise. I could be wrong, too.
Who is Rosetta is?
I think hers is older. I could be way off.
Really? You think Rosetta's is? Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking it up right now.
I'm totally basing that on the look of the YouTube clips I've seen of both. One just looks older.
But Mahalia didn't really record Didn't It Rain. But Mahalia didn't do video because it was pre-video, wasn't it?
Oh.
Maybe I'm wrong. I know there's video footage of her at Newport. Oh, Didn't It Rain? Rosetta Tharpe, 1948. Mahalia Jackson, 54. Wow. I wonder, though. It's so fascinating I'm so fascinated with hymns and the history of them and the what's the word? I'm blanking on a word. Just the lifeline of them and the origin and the lifeline and the kind of reiterations of them are so interesting to me. I had to do a workshop at the Edmonton Folk Festival, and the theme of the workshop was Smithsonian Folkways records. So I started to dig deep into all these lead belly tunes, and man, there's just the coolest, like, you'll hear a hymn that you heard Rosetta Tharpe do, and then you hear some random field recording of it with the singer untitled and the whole thing,
Right.
and then you find some other version of it. I went into such a rabbit hole, such an enjoyable rabbit hole of study and research on it for a minute. I thought it would be cool to look more into that, actually. I love that stuff.
That is super cool. And obviously Cameo did it in 1985 as well. Right.
That's the version you and I grew up on.
Of course.
Of course. The B-side of Word Up.
Can't get in, just listen to the right, just listen to the right. All day, all night, all night, all day. Didn't it rain, children? Rain all night long, didn't it? Didn't it? Oh my Lord, didn't it rain? Got such a raven to spread the news. Horses wings and away he flew to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. Some crying, some moaning, some praying. Just to listen to the rain, said to listen to the rain. All day, all night, all night, all day. Didn't it rain, children? Rain all night long, didn't it? Didn't it? Oh my Lord, didn't it rain? You can run, but you can't hide. River rise, high. Tears falling from heaven's eyes. Mountains like dust in the vault of the sky. No soul rainbow sign, no more war. Find next time. Listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain. All day, all night, all day. Just to listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain. David looked up in the heat of the day, tuned his harp, began to play all day, all night, all day. Just to listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain. Some cry, some moan, some moan and some pray. Just to listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain, just to listen to the rain. All day, all night, all night, all day. Didn't it rain, children? Rain all night long, didn't it? Didn't it? Oh my Lord, didn't it rain?
These are songs that you've written as well, right? Rescue Me is the second track. And can you talk about sort of your coming out as a writer on a solo disc like this? That's got to be exciting, liberating, nerve-wracking, all that stuff.
Well, yes, I will say I took a lot of pressure. I co-wrote almost everything on the record with Rescue Me was Dan Littleton and Byron and I co-wrote a lot of songs with Byron, and Dan helped on another one of the songs on Roll Away. He wrote a section. I took the pressure off myself because really writing is very new to me. And there's only one song on the record that I wrote myself, which is called Sing to Me, and other than that, I really took a lead from those guys because writing felt new, and it feels like something that I'm really just still developing. And just recently I've been challenging myself trying to write for the next album, writing alone and also writing with a lot of different people, connecting with a lot of different writers, which has been an extraordinary experience, humbling and also exciting. But I'm very, very new at it, so I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself. I'm just kind of letting it unfold.
Nice. You mentioned a new record. You got to be, Didn't It Rain is, from last year, 2015. I think it was released the summer of last year. Are you chomping at the bit to make the next record?
Yes, I am completely excited and awaiting the recording process and the whole thing. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm thirsty to record another record and to dig into the songs.
Nice. And I'm assuming it's going to be a similar situation where it's a mixture of covers and originals.
I'm trying to write or co-write the whole thing, but if a song comes down the pike from somewhere else that just has to be on it, of course, I'm totally open to that.
Right.
But as of now, I'm just trying to completely immerse myself in writing by myself or with other folks. But we'll see. We'll see what comes.
Excellent. Looking forward to that very much.
Thanks.
I do have just one sort of final question. I always put it out to our listeners
Okay.
if they have a question, and I got one from a friend of mine named Brian Joyce, and it's about your father, actually, of course. He basically wants to know, did you ever talk to him about the pre-Dylan band recordings, like Canadian Squires, the Hawks? How did he look back on those? Because for him, that had to be something.
Okay, so I never asked him specifically about the recordings, the albums, but I had been listening to a bootleg someone gave me of Levon and the Hawks from I don't know what year it was, from one of the dance halls in one of the Canadian clubs that they were playing. And I was so blown away by the way that my dad and Richard were singing Lucille and all of these other soul tunes from that time, and the way that they sounded like these unbelievable vocals they were doing, this kind of singing. And what struck me about it is that they weren't just imitating Chuck Berry. They kind of had their own sound inside of it.
Right.
And they were so young, and I was just blown away by the intricacy and the kind of nuance of what they were doing vocally. And so I asked him about it. I said, that's unbelievable. You guys were like geniuses at 18 that you could,
right.
Sing Lucille like that. And actually your own voice is right there in the center of it, but you've got just enough of the Chuck Berry thing that it's and I'm sorry, not Chuck Berry, Little Richard. But anyway, he said it wasn't us. He said what it was is that we were playing 7 and 8 shows a week. He
Right.
said we played every night, and on Sunday we did a matinee, and we did that over and over and over again for years at a time. And he said sometimes when they would finish doing a gig, they would go rehearse from midnight to 2 in the morning because they were 18 and
Right.
they could, And he was really he talks about those times as, looking back on them, he was really talking about them being a testament to how much it has changed for a working musician and how those opportunities, they don't exist for young bands now because there aren't dance halls where people go out and listen to music 7 nights a week because
Right.
back then that's all people did. And that was pretty interesting to think about that, I mean, we all know that they were geniuses anyway, but really to think about the practicality of it and what he was talking about. Always that conversation really struck me and sticks with me. So that's the most I talked to him about, those specific recordings and time.
Excellent. And obviously, just the last thing is Midnight Ramble's still going strong. Venue
still going strong. The barn is hopping, man. People, we've got all kinds of amazing stuff going on there. Great bands coming and playing there, and it's such a special place. It's so heartwarming to see, Richard Thompson and Ruthie Foster and the Wood Brothers and all kinds of amazing groups, younger upcoming bands. Lake Street Dive was there, and Shaky Graves was there, and
sweet,
just awesome folks, coming in and playing the barn. It's what the place was built for, and it's still just a special spot. If no one's come, you got to come to Woodstock and experience a show there. It's singular.
Awesome. Well, Amy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I know you got a sick little one, and I appreciate you taking the time out, and looking forward to the new record. Obviously, people can find you online at amyhelm.com.
Yeah, we're out doing shows in November, opening for Tedeschi Trucks, and thank you for your time, and I hope to see people out at a show.
Come stay by me, and together we'll be in the shadows of the tall, tall pines. I'll gather you in, and together we'll swim the deep waters in your blue, blue eyes. Down in the deep, where it's silent and still, longings fulfilled, and only our love remains. Down we'll go, sweet undertow, deep water of you and me. I'll meet you there, the moment we will share in the shadows of the tall, tall pines. But I can't let you in, for no one swim the troubled waters in my blue, blue eyes. Down undertow, deep waters of you and me. Never know the love us below, deep waters of you and me.
Thanks again for listening. This conversation with Amy Helm, like I said, she is incredible. If you have a chance to see her live, you ought to seize it because it's really something. You can find her tour dates and her merch and hopefully a new record at amyhelm.com. And you can find more Pods and Sods on our website, which is podsodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podssods. You can find us on iTunes, everywhere. Just Google Pods and Sods Network and you'll find all kinds of goodies. Leave a comment, please, wherever you go. Say something nice. We always that feeds our souls. So please do that. And until next time, I will leave you with some words of wisdom that I always close with from Mr. Bill Hicks. Thank you.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.